What if a burned-out CEO's tire blew in front of a tiny Brooklyn garage? And the quiet mechanic who saved her from a deadly crash was the only man she could trust to pose as her boyfriend in a mansion full of sharks. Before we dive in, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next slow burn stories about crossing worlds, second chances, and the kind of love that feels more like coming home than winning. By noon, the heat in Brooklyn rose off the pavement like steam. Inside the narrow bay of Cole's Auto, fans whirred uselessly against the thick air. The place smelled like oil and metal and the faint tang of coffee someone had forgotten on a workbench. Ethan Cole lay on a creeper under a Honda, grease on his forearms, sweat at the back of his neck. He listened to the engine's small, uneven cough with the focus of a surgeon. "Come on, girl," he muttered. "Just tell me what's wrong." The car answered with a shudder that vibrated through the concrete floor. He closed his eyes and listened. There, a tiny hitch, like a skipped heartbeat. He slid out, wiped his hands on a rag, grabbed a socket wrench. Above him, the radio played a scratchy classic rock song. Outside, someone honked twice, impatient. "Be right with you," he called. He finished tightening the bolt, double-checked the line he'd just bled, and only then rolled out into the light. A black Range Rover sat half on the curb, one front tire sagging flat. The woman standing beside it did not belong on this block. White blouse, pencil skirt the color of expensive wine, heels dangling from her fingers now, because the pavement would have eaten them alive. Dark hair pulled into a low knot, a gold watch on her wrist, phone pressed to her ear. "I know the meeting is at 3, she was saying. "I'm not late yet. I'm early with a disaster. There's a difference." When she saw Ethan, she ended the call, exhaled, and tried to compose her face into something calm. It almost worked. "Hi," she said. "I think I shredded your curb." He glanced past her at the tire. It wasn't the curb. The rubber at the sidewall had blown out in a jagged, ugly wound. He walked over, squatted, ran his thumb along the rim, his brow furrowed. "Didn't hit anything," he said. This was waiting to happen. She frowned. "It's a new set," she said. "The dealership swapped them last month." "The dealership," he repeated. He stood, wiped his hands. "Come on," he said. "You shouldn't stand in those on this floor." Before she could protest, he ducked inside, came back with a plastic lawn chair and a pair of cheap rubber flip-flops still banded together with plastic. He set the chair in the only patch of shade, dropped the flip-flops at her feet. "What is this?" she asked. "Insurance," he said. "Sit. Those shoes cost more than my rent. No point murdering them." Her mouth tilted, almost a smile. She sat. She slipped on the flip-flops too big, but better than bare feet on oil-spotted concrete. He jacked up the car, spun off the lug nuts, and pulled the wheel free. He whistled. At the valve stem, gleaming where it had no business gleaming, was an aftermarket chrome piece that looked sleek and wrong. "Who sold you this?" he asked, holding up the wheel. She frowned. "The Heartline showroom on 5th, she said. "Their service center?" "Why?" "Because they put in the wrong damn valve," he said flatly. "This thing looks pretty on Instagram, but it can't take the pressure with this tire size. Heat builds up, rubber weakens, sidewall blows. On the BQE at 70, this isn't annoying. It's fatal." She blinked. "How do you know?" she asked. "Because my dad died in one," he said. "Different brand, same stupid idea. Fancy parts where they don't belong." He watched her face as he spoke. She didn't flinch away. She looked at the ruined tire like it had personally betrayed her. "So you're saying," she said slowly, "that the people who sold me the car made it more dangerous so it would look better?" "Looks that way," Ethan said. "You can sue them if you live long enough." He dropped the wheel, turned to his racks. "I've got a tire that'll fit," he said. "It's not sexy. It'll do its job." "How much?" she asked automatically. He named a price that would keep the lights on another week. Her brows rose, but he added, "And if you go back there, tell them they put you on a ticking bomb. Or don't. Better find another garage." Like yours, she said. He shrugged. Like anyone who cares more about torque specs than chrome. She watched him work for a minute. He moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times. Careful, steady, nothing wasted. Cars and men, she thought. One polished to a shine, one streaked with grease. She trusted the second more. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down at the screen. A text from her assistant. Board wants to know if you're still coming to the Hamptons this weekend. Grant will be there. They're hopeful. She locked the screen without answering. The board, the Hamptons, Grant. Her stomach tightened. In meetings and magazines, she was Vivian Hart, the youngest CEO Heartline Motors had ever installed. The face of electric expansion. The woman who smiled in gowns on red carpets and talked, always about the future. In private, she was very tired. Do you ever leave this place, she asked suddenly. Ethan snorted. Sometimes I go as far as the bodega, he said. Big adventure. You don't like to travel, she pressed. I don't like rooms full of people who use the word synergy unironically, he said. She laughed, sharp and surprised. You sound like you've been, she said. He slid the new wheel onto the hub. Once, he said shortly. He didn't elaborate. She didn't push. A breeze slipped through the bay, lifting a few paper napkins from the trash. Somewhere a siren wailed, then faded. He lowered the car, tightened the lugs, checked the pressure. You're good? He said. She stood, wobbling slightly on the flip-flops, then swapping back into her heels. How much do I owe you? She asked again. He told her. She tapped her card on his battered reader and zipped her wallet. Thank you, she said, for catching the valve, for the chair, for the honesty. Just doing my job, he said. She hesitated. You really think I should never go back to that service center, she asked. I think if you do, you should make them explain why they did this, he said. And you should stand far away while they squirm. There was something sharp in the way he said squirm that she liked. She opened her mouth to say goodbye, to walk back into the world where her car was a prop and her life was a calendar. Then a thought landed fully formed. It was reckless, desperate, very unlike her. Wait, she said. He was already turning away. He glanced back, one brow raised. Yes, she studied him, hair tied back under a cap, jaw rough with stubble, t-shirt with the garage logo, dark with sweat at the collar, arms that looked strong enough to lift an engine block without a winch. But it wasn't his looks that made her ask. It was the way he'd spoken to her like she was a person instead of a headline. It was the way he'd told her no. I have a problem this weekend, she said, a different kind from exploded tires. You need your catalytic converter stolen, he deadpanned. She smiled despite herself. I have to be in the Hamptons, she said. Big investor gathering. Board members. Old money. I've been encouraged to attend with a +1. Date, he asked. Strategic partnership, she said. They'd like me to be open to Mr. Grant Mercer. His father sits on my board. He's perfectly nice and perfectly wrong for me. It's political. Optics. And you want someone to stand between you and mere perfectly wrong, Ethan said. Yes, she said. You've got friends, he said. Hire an actor. I'm sure Manhattan is full of out-of-work people who'd love to wear a suit for the weekend. I don't trust actors, she said. They're too good at lying. He leaned back against the workbench. And I'm not, he asked. I don't think you know how to be, she said. He frowned. Look, she went on. I need someone who doesn't owe anyone in that world anything, who isn't impressed by money, who won't trade me for a better offer halfway through dessert. That's a low bar, he said. It's higher than you think, she replied. She hesitated. I'd pay you, she said, for the weekend, more than you made on this tire. She named a number that made his eyes flicker. He thought of hospital bills, of his mother's last cardiology appointment, the way she'd smiled and said, I'm fine, baby, then winced when she thought he wasn't looking. He thought of the voicemail from the billing department he'd been avoiding. He also thought of a Hamptons lawn 10 years ago, his ex's friends in linen and laughter, the way they'd looked at him when they learned he fixed cars and not markets, and he swallowed. What would I have to do, he asked. Just be my boyfriend for 48 hours, she said. Dinners, cocktail hours, maybe one photo if someone gets pushy, but I'll try to avoid that. You don't have to pretend you're rich. Just be decent to me, and don't let them corner me. You're asking me to lie to your board, he said. I'm asking you to help me survive a weekend, she corrected. The board lies to themselves all the time. They'll be fine. He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't own a suit, he said. I know a place, she replied. He looked at the Range Rover, at the tire, at his own reflection faintly warped in the shiny black paint. Let me guess, he said. You're not just some random customer. She smiled, small and wry, and held out her hand. Vivian Hart, she said. I run Heartline Motors. The people who sold you those terrible valves. He stared for a second, then barked out a laugh that surprised both of them. You're kidding, he said. Sadly, no, she replied. But I'm trying to fix that. Starting with not dying on the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. He looked at her hand. If he took it, his life would tilt. He thought of his father's last drive, of his mother's tired eyes, of himself at 18 p.m., standing on a Hamptons lawn in a borrowed shirt, feeling like a stain on someone's tablecloth. He took her hand. Ethan, he said. Ethan Cole. I fix cars. And apparently CEOs. Her grip was warm, firm. We'll start with the cars, she said. The CEOs are trickier. 2 days later, Ethan stood in a boutique on Madison Avenue, feeling like he'd wandered into a movie set by mistake. The air smelled faintly of citrus and expensive fabric. Mirrors reflected mirrors. Suits hung in perfect rows, each one probably worth more than the blue Ford he'd rebuilt last month. A fitter circled him with a mouthful of pins, muttering about sleeve length and shoulders. Vivian sat on a low velvet sofa, phone on the table beside her, legs crossed. Today she wore jeans and a soft gray sweater instead of armor. She watched him with an amused tilt to her head. You look like you're about to bolt, she said. I've worn rental tuxes before, he said. For weddings? They never felt like this. Like what she asked, like I'm putting my skin on backwards, he muttered. The fitter stepped back. Turn, the man said. Good. Again. Ethan obeyed. He hardly recognized the guy in the mirror. The jacket hugged his shoulders. The shirt was crisp and white. The tie, still untied, hung around his neck like a question. The fitter left to fetch shoes. Vivian stood, crossed the room, and picked up the tie. May I, she asked. He swallowed. Go ahead, he said. She looped the fabric around his collar, fingers moving with practiced ease. Her knuckles brushed his throat. He could smell her shampoo, something clean and faintly floral. You've done this before, he said. Too many charity galas, she replied. Half the men in my world can't dress themselves. Do they all have fake girlfriends too? He asked. She smiled without humor. They have wives hired from the right families, she said. Or fiancés from the right schools. Everyone plays a part. And you, he asked. I'm supposed to, she said. My board thinks my personal life needs a strategic partner. She air quoted the phrase. That's where Grant comes in. Grant, he repeated. The guy with the board member dad. Exactly, Jim. And she said, marriage as a merger. Very efficient. Romantic, he said dryly. That's why I'm bribing a mechanic instead, she said. Her fingers tightened the knot, slid it up to his throat. She stepped back, cocking her head. There, she said. You look like a kid in a costume, he said. Like a man who belongs in any room he walks into, she corrected softly. He snorted. Windows look different from your side, he said. She didn't argue. Instead, she walked back to the sofa and picked up a folder. Tell me about Marco, she said. He blinked. Marco, he echoed. The kid you mentioned yesterday, she said. 17, likes engines, hangs around your garage. Ethan sat carefully on the edge of a chair, suit jacket pulling at his shoulders. He's from the next block over, he said. Mom works nights. Dad's out of the picture. He's smart with his hands. School bores him. His friends are into dumb stuff. I let him sweep the shop, change oil, keeps him off the street for a few hours. You're mentoring him, she said. I'm stopping him from joining a gang, he said. If he learns to rebuild a carburetor along the way, great. She opened the folder, slid it toward him. He saw diagrams, budget lines, a title at the top. Streetline program, draft. What's this, he asked. A thing my board won't look at, she said. An idea. Partnering with small garages like yours. Paid apprenticeships for kids like Marco. Real training, certifications, pathways to being more than the stereotype of kid from the wrong block. He stared at the page. There's money in this, he asked. Not at first, she said. That's the problem. It doesn't impress shareholders, but it makes our cars safer and our city less on fire. So why haven't you done it, he asked. Her mouth tightened. Because every time I bring it up, someone says we need to focus on growth, she said. On margins, on the next market, not on kids with grease under their nails. She looked away. Sometimes I think I'm only a symbol to them, she admitted. A headline. A box they check to show how progressive and visionary they are. Female CEO leads legacy automaker into the future. Her voice was flat. They don't want the parts of me that remember being a broke kid who sketched cars in the margins of her notebooks. And Ethan studied her. You were broke, he asked. Mom was a nurse, she said. Dad drove a bus. I got a scholarship, then buried myself in work until I landed here. She tapped the folder. This was supposed to be my way of reaching back, she said. I keep it on my desktop. I open it in between earnings calls. Then I close it and go back to pretending I don't care. He thought of the valve in her tire, the way she'd listened when he talked about his father. You do care, he said. Yes, she replied. That's the problem. Silence sat between them for a moment. The fitter returned with shoes and cleared his throat politely. Vivian snapped the folder shut. Another time, she murmured. Ethan slipped into the shoes of Aaron. They fit better than anything he owned. He looked in the mirror one last time. Ready, Vivian asked. Not even a little, he said. She smiled. That makes two of us, she said. The Hamptons looked exactly the way Ethan remembered, and nothing like it at all. The same long driveways, the same manicured hedges, the same endless sky smudged pink at the edges by the sinking sun. Different house, different crowd, same feeling in his gut. The Heartline estate rose up ahead, all glass and stone and clean lines, perched like a magazine, spread above the dull, patient ocean. Cars glided up the circular drive, sleek, silent electric models. A few vintage restorations brought out to show off. Ethan's hand tightened around the door handle of the sedan as their driver pulled in. You can still bail, Vivian said quietly beside him. Can you, he asked. She smiled without humor. Not without firing half my board, she said. He exhaled. Then no, he said, we go. They stepped out into the light. Camera shutters clicked somewhere. Laughter rose and fell. Someone called Vivian's name. She slid her arm through Ethan's, nails grazing the fabric at his wrist. You're doing great, she murmured. I'm standing, he said. That's about all I've got. That's more than most, she replied. Inside, the house throbbed with money. White walls. Art that probably cost more than Ethan's entire neighborhood. Waiters in black carried trays of champagne flutes. People swarmed Vivian. Vivian, you made it, Viv. This is Tanner from... Names washed over Ethan. Faces blurred. He recognized none of them, but he recognized the way they looked at him. Appraising, curious, measuring. A man in his 50s with a tan that came from yachts, not construction sites, drifted over with a drink in hand. Vivian, he said, you're even later than Grant. I was starting to worry. Fashionably late, she said. You know how it is, Randall. Randall Mercer. Ethan placed the name. Grant's father, board member. And who's this, Randall asked, turning his gaze to Ethan. I didn't know you were bringing company. This is Ethan, Vivian said calmly. He's with me. Randall offered a hand. His grip was firm, his smile thin. Pleasure, he said. What line of work are you in? Ethan felt the weight of the suit on his shoulders, the way the room went a degree quieter. He heard his younger self, standing on another lawn, choking on the words, "I fix cars," as laughter bubbled around him. Vivian's hand tightened on his arm, but she stayed silent. His heart thudded once, hard. "I'm a mechanic," he said. "I fix cars. Mostly the ones your dealerships mess up." A couple near the bar tried and failed to hide a smirk. Someone's eyebrows climbed. Randall's smile didn't falter. "Honest work," he said. Vivian has always appreciated craftsmanship. His tone made it sound like he was talking about a handmade coffee table. Ethan's jaw tensed. Vivian stepped forward, putting herself slightly between them. "Ethan saved my life this week," she said. Randall blinked. "Oh," he said. "He caught a dangerous modification on one of our fleet cars before a blowout on the BQE," she said. "If he hadn't, I might not be standing here." Her voice carried farther than she intended. Conversations nearby quieted. "You know those aftermarket valves the Fifth Avenue showroom has been pushing?" she went on. "They look fantastic in photos. They also almost killed me. Ethan was the only one who told me the truth instead of selling me another set." A murmur went through the crowd. Randall shifted. "I'm sure our people," he began. "Missed it," she cut in, "because they were thinking about aesthetics, not physics." She lifted her glass. "I'm tired of rooms where everyone measures each other by what's on their business card," she said. "Tonight I wanted someone next to me who knows the difference between a safe brake line and a pretty one. Someone who doesn't flinch when I'm not perfect." That's Ethan. That's why he's here. For a heartbeat, the room hung in suspended silence. Then someone in the back, one of the younger engineers Ethan recognized from a Heartline promo video, raised his own glass. "To not dying for aesthetics," he said. A ripple of laughter broke the tension. Glasses clinked. Randall's smile tightened, but he recovered. "Well," he said, "welcome, Ethan. Enjoy the evening." He melted back into the crowd. Vivian let out a breath she'd been holding. "You didn't have to do that?" Ethan murmured. "Yes," she said. "I did." Later, when the moon was up and the swimmers had left the pool, Ethan escaped to the edge of the property. The lawn fell away to a strip of sand in the restless sea beyond. Waves rolled in, white in the dark, hissing as they slid back. He sat on the damp sand in his suit pants, shoes off, toes curling into the cold grain. The sky above was huge, a dark bowl studded with faint stars. For the first time that day, he let himself feel everything. The way the room had tilted when he said mechanic, the echo of past laughter in his skull, the flash of pride when Vivian had spoken up, the strangling tightness of the tie around his throat. He loosened it and tossed it aside. Footsteps crunched behind him. "Is it weird that I like you better like this?" Vivian asked. "With sand on your socks and your tie abandoned." He half smiled. "You're not going to get mad about the dry cleaning bill?" he asked. She sat beside him, hugging her knees, careful to keep the hem of her dress out of the wet sand. "I can afford it," she said. She handed him a paper cup. It was warm. The smell of chocolate rose up. And "Stole it from the kitchen," she said. "They're making hot cocoa for the kids in the morning. I bribed them with the promise of a board member's donation." "You weaponized cocoa," he said. "Impressive." They drank in silence for a while. The waves spoke their own language, constant and soft. First time back, she asked at last. He didn't pretend not to know what she meant. "Yeah," he said. "Want to tell me?" she asked. He stared at the horizon. "Ex-girlfriend," he said. "College. Her family had a place out here. I came up in a borrowed shirt. Thought I was living the dream. They laughed when I told them what my dad did, what I wanted to do. One guy asked if I was there to valet. I laughed it off. Until she laughed too." He swallowed. "She told me later I was being sensitive," he said, "that I should appreciate being invited into their world." "And did you?" Vivian asked. "I appreciated the ride home," he said. "I took the train back to Brooklyn and decided I didn't need their world." She was quiet for a moment. "I had a panic attack in a boardroom once," she said. He glanced at her. "Standing in front of the screen," she said, "ready to present quarterly earnings. The room full of men 30 years older than me, waiting to see if I'd justify my salary. My heart just took off. My hands went numb. The slide in front of me blurred. I thought, if I pass out right now, they'll never let another woman stand here again. What did you do? He asked. She smiled wryly. Delivered the presentation, she said, then went to the bathroom and threw up. Went home that night, opened the file for Streetline, stared at it for an hour, then closed it. Again. Why didn't you quit? He asked. Because if I left, they'd say, we tried. It didn't work, she said. And they'd hire another guy named John and call it a day. She leaned back on her hands. And because I'm stubborn, she added, but stubbornness only gets you so far before you realize you've built a cage out of your own pride. He thought of his garage, of the rent notices, of his mother's polite coughs, of Marco leaning over an engine block, eyes bright. My cage has less glass, he said. Same bars, she replied. They sat there until the cups were empty and the moon had shifted. At some point, her shoulder brushed his. He didn't move away. He didn't kiss her. She didn't ask him to. It was enough, for now, just to sit beside someone who knew how it felt to be too much and not enough at the same time. On the drive back to the city Sunday night, the car hummed quietly along the highway. Vivian tapped at her phone, answering emails. Ethan watched the dark blur of trees, the occasional flare of headlights from oncoming lanes. Thank you, she said at one point, without looking up. For what, he asked. For not bolting, she said. For letting them see you. For letting me see you. The check cleared, he said lightly. She smiled. Still, she said. They crossed a bridge, the city rising ahead of them in a jagged line of light. Ethan's stomach knotted harder with every mile. He thought of her in those rooms, of himself in his garage, of the gap between when they hit Brooklyn. He cleared his throat. Can we stop here, he asked. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror, waiting for Vivian's nod. She looked at Ethan. We're 10 minutes from your place, she said. You don't have to take the subway in that suit. It's fine, he said. I like the train. She studied his face. Pull over at the next station, she told the driver. He did. The car eased up to the curb under the flickering streetlight. The subway entrance yawned a block away, a square of shadowed stairs leading down. Ethan unclipped his belt. Well, he said, we survived. We did, she said. She didn't sound happy. He reached for the door handle. Ethan, she said. He paused. I meant what I said, she told him, about you belonging in any room. He laughed once, softly. I appreciate the fantasy, he said, but we both know what world I go back to tomorrow. You could have both, she said. The garage and what he cut in gently. Being your weekend arm candy in exchange for foundation money. Her expression flickered. I know, he said. You meant it kindly, but I'm not a project. Vivian, I'm not a program you can add to your deck. He took a breath. This weekend was good, he said. We helped each other. You kept me from drowning in old ghosts. I kept you from Grant. That's enough. It doesn't have to end here, she said quietly. He met her eyes. Yes, he said, it does, because you have a board to answer to, a company to run, a million expectations. I have a mother who needs surgery and a kid named Marco who will lose his footing if I start pretending I'm someone I'm not. He offered a crooked smile. Besides, he added, your world comes with dress codes. She didn't smile back. Take care of yourself. Ethan, she said. You too, he replied. He stepped out into the humid air, closed the door, and didn't look back until he reached the stairs. When he did, he saw the car still there, her silhouette in the back seat, unmoving. Then the light turned green, and the sedan slid away into the night. He went down into the subway, suit too sharp for the graffiti and gum. On the train, his reflection in the window looked like a stranger. By the time he reached his stop, he had decided not to answer if she ever called again. It was easier that way, for both of them, or so he told himself. Weeks blurred, the garage filled with the usual noise, engines, radios, Marco's chatter. Ethan's mother went in for more tests. The cardiologist's brow furrowed deeper with each visit. We can schedule the surgery, the doctor said, but the out-of-pocket portion. Yeah, Ethan said. I know. He took on more work, late-night tow jobs, weekend hours. He did not open the messages that blinked on his phone, numbers he didn't recognize, emails from a Heartline domain his hands itched to delete unread. He almost made it. Then one gray afternoon, he looked up from under the hood of an old Civic and saw her. Vivian stood in the garage doorway in jeans, boots, and a dark coat. No heels, no entourage. Hair down, damp from a misting rain. In her hands, balanced carefully, was a box the size of a microwave. Marco, sweeping in the corner, stopped mid-stroke. He said, "Yo, Ethan, there's a movie star here for you." Vivian smiled at him. "Hi, Marco," she said. He blinked. "You know my name?" he asked. "I know Ethan talks about you," she said. "That counts." She turned to Ethan. "Can we talk?" she asked. He wiped his hands, jaw tight. "We're kind of busy," he said. "We'll be busier if you burn out without help," she replied. She set the box on the workbench and opened it. Ethan's breath caught. Inside sat a brand new diagnostic scanner, the kind he drooled over in catalogs, the kind that could read any car's computer, run tests in seconds that took him hours. "I don't take gifts," he said. "It's not a gift," she said. "It's equipment for a pilot program." He stared. "Streetline," she said. "I pushed it through the foundation side. We have seed funding. I carved out a part of my bonus. No board signatures needed. I wanted your garage to be the first site." He shook his head. "No," he said. "No," she echoed. "I'm not a prop for your CSR campaign," he said. "I'm not putting my shop's name on some brochure so your investors can feel good about themselves." Anger flared in her eyes. "Do you really think that's all this is?" she asked. "I think you live in a world where everything is presentation," he said. "I live in one where people get hurt when bolts are loose. I can't afford to be someone's story." She exhaled sharply. "You really don't trust anyone, do you?" she asked. "Not with this," he said. A cough from the doorway cut the tension. "Ethan," his mother called softly. "You got a minute?" She stood in her cardigan, a scarf around her neck, cheeks pale. He hurried over. "You should be at home," he scolded. "You're supposed to be resting." "I was at the hospital," she said. "They needed your signature on some insurance forms. The doctor asked if you'd gotten their message." He had 3 missed calls from the hospital. His stomach dropped. "What message?" he asked. "They're worried," she said gently. "If the balance isn't paid, they may have to move the surgery back. Make room for less complicated cases." He swayed. Vivian watched, box open at her side. "Ethan," she said quietly, "let me help." He squeezed his eyes shut. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," he said. "You throw money at things. They go away. I don't have that luxury." "It's not about throwing money," she said. "It's about using what I have to fix what I can. You taught me that when you yelled at my valve." He almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he said, "Take your machine, Vivian. Use it somewhere that looks better in your reports." So he turned back to the car. She stood there for a long moment. Then she closed the box slowly. "I'll be back tonight," she said. "Don't," he replied. She walked out into the rain. The rain came harder after dark. Cole's auto was a yellow island of light in a sheet of gray. Water drummed on the corrugated metal roof. The fan rattled. "Somewhere, bang," Thunder muttered. Ethan stayed late, partly to catch up on work, partly because going home meant facing his mother's brave smile. He was under a pickup when the garage door rattled. "We're closed," he called. "I know," a familiar voice answered. He slid out. Vivian stood just inside the door, soaked through. Water dripped from her hair, her coat, the hem of her jeans. She held an envelope in one hand, the diagnostic scanner box in the other. He sighed. "You're going to get pneumonia," he said. "I've had worse," she replied. She set the box on the floor, the envelope on the workbench. "Open it," she said. "I told you," he began. "It's not a check," she said. "Just open it." He wiped his hands, picked up the envelope. The paper was thick, edges damp where the rain had kissed it. Inside was a letter on hospital letterhead. He read the first lines, his vision blurred. This letter confirms that Heartline Foundation has agreed to cover the remaining balance of Miss Colleen Cole's procedure, surgery scheduled as originally planned. He read it twice. Vivian, he said. He didn't know what the question was. Maybe all of them. She stepped closer. I didn't put my name on any plaque, she said. There's no press release. No photo op. The only people who know are me, the foundation accountant. And now you, This isn't for my image. It's for your mother. He swallowed hard. I can't pay you back, he said. You already did, she said. He frowned and how he asked. You saved my life, she said simply. On that curb. You saved a lot of other people's lives the day you decided safety matters more than shine. You told me the truth when no one else would. You reminded me why I ever cared about this business. She gestured at the scanner. This, she said, is selfish. I want Streetline to work. I want kids like Marco trained by people like you, not by glossy brochures. I want to live in a world where our cars are built and fixed by people who actually give a damn. I can't do that from my corner office alone. He sank onto a stool. The sound of the rain filled the gaps. She moved closer until they were only a few feet apart. Only trust can bridge the gap between us, she said softly. Not money, not titles, not some fake weekend romance. Trust. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, folded twice. He unfolded it. In her looping script, it read, Don't leave me, and don't leave yourself. His chest hurt. I'm scared, he admitted, voice rough. Not of you. Of everything. Of waking up one day in your world and realizing I lost mine. Of you waking up one day and realizing you don't want the guy from Brooklyn who can't spell half the words in your board reports. She huffed out a laugh. I can barely spell half the words in my board reports, she said. They're mostly acronyms and buzzwords. He didn't smile. She sobered. I'm scared too, she said, that you'll decide I'm just another Mercer in better shoes, that I'll fail Streetline and prove my board right, that I'll always be the girl in the power suit whose heart beats too fast in conference rooms. They stood there, fear laid bare between them. The rain softened, just a little. Ethan slid off the stool, walked to the scanner box, and rested his hand on the lid. If we do this, he said slowly, we do it my way. No cameras, no pity posts. The kids who come through here aren't charity. They're workers in training. Agreed, she said. He looked at the letter again. My mom's going to ask who paid. He said, tell her a foundation did. She replied, she doesn't need my name. She'll know you did what you had to. His throat thickened. And us, he asked, surprising himself. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the rain still clinging to her lashes. No suits, she said. No scripts. No pretending we're something we're not. We build our own world. One that can fit a garage and a foundation and a few terrified feelings. Terrified feelings, he repeated. It's a technical term, she said. He laughed then, a broken, relieved sound. Without thinking too hard about it, he reached out and took her hand. It was cold from the rain. He wrapped his other hand around it, warming it between his palms. Okay, he said, we try. She let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped in her chest for years. Okay, she echoed. They stood there as the rain tapered death, hand in hand in the middle of a greasy floor. Both of them feeling, for the first time in a long time, like they might actually be standing somewhere real. The community center on Atlantic Avenue had seen a lot. Basketball games, food drives, bingo nights, flu shot clinics. It had never hosted a crowd quite like this. On one side of the big room, folding chairs faced a low stage. On the other, workbenches held disassembled brake assemblies, neatly labeled, ready for curious hands. Banners read, Streetline Training, opening night in letters painted a little unevenly by volunteer kids. Marco stood near the front bench, nervous energy fizzing under his skin. You sure they're gonna let me touch this? He whispered to Ethan. You rebuilt half of it, Ethan said, growing. You're going to be teaching them. Them were the small group of teenagers filtering in, some dragged by parents, some curious, some clearly here because there was nothing better to do. Along the walls, in more expensive clothing, stood board members, donors, a few journalists invited under the label of community initiative. Near the back, Randall Mercer adjusted his cufflinks, frown lines deep. Grant stood beside him, jaw tight, checking his watch. In the front row sat Ethan's mother, hands clasped on a cane, eyes bright. Every now and then she touched her chest absent-mindedly, as if still surprised the beat inside was steady. Vivian stood backstage, palms damp. "You okay?" Ethan murmured, touching her elbow. "I've faced shareholders, regulators, hostile press," she said. "None of them scare me as much as a room full of kids and my own conscience." He smiled. "You'll do fine," he said. She took the microphone, walked out into the light. "Thank you all for coming," she began. Her voice echoed off the high ceiling. "When I took the top job at Heartline Motors, I thought I knew what power looked like," she said. "Big offices, big budgets, big decisions." She glanced at the workbenches. "I forgot where the real power is," she said. "In the hands that actually touch the cars. In the kids who grow up thinking they're only ever going to be customers, not builders." She told them about Streetline not as a slick pitch, but as a story of sketching cars on napkins. Of the first time she set foot in a plant. Of the day a mechanic on a Brooklyn sidewalk told her the truth about her own product. "He pissed me off," she said. Laughter rippled. "He also saved my life. And he reminded me that the gap between boardrooms and garages is smaller than we think if we build a bridge." She gestured toward the side. "This," she said, "is one plank in that bridge." She swallowed. "And so," she said, heart pounding but voice steady, "tonight I'm not making an announcement my board wanted. I'm making one I need." Randall shifted. "I will be stepping down as CEO of Heartline Motors in 6 months," she said. "I'll be moving full-time to lead Heartline Foundation in Streetline program. Someone else can chase quarterly growth. I want to chase safer roads and second chances." A gasp moved through the room like a wave. Vivian smiled, small and free. "Before you ask," she said, looking pointedly at Randall, "no, I do not have another corporate offer. No, I am not having a breakdown. Yes, the board is annoyed. They'll live." A few chuckles. She continued. "If you want to know what I'm betting on," she said, "you don't need to look at me. You need to look at the man who built this pilot with me." She beckoned. "Ethan," she said, "come up here." He shook his head once, reflex, then saw Marco clapping and his mother beaming and realized there was nowhere else he'd rather be. He took the mic, hands awkward on the metal. He said, people chuckled. "I'm not great with speeches," he said. "I fix things that don't talk back." Laughter again, warmer. He took a breath. "My dad died because someone thought pretty parts mattered more than safe ones," he said. "My mom lived because someone decided her life was worth more than a line item." He glanced at Vivian. "The woman who just told you she's leaving a very fancy job came to my garage in the rain," he said. "She didn't bring a camera crew. She brought a diagnostic scanner and a letter that kept my mom's surgery on the calendar." He nodded toward the kids. "I grew up thinking people like me stayed on the outside of places like this," he said. "We held the doors. We parked the cars. We didn't stand at microphones. We didn't run programs. I'm here to tell you that's a lie." He pointed at the benches. "If you want it," he said, "there's a place for your hands on these engines. There's a place for your name on a certification. There's a place for you in this world that's bigger than just getting by." He paused. "And if anyone ever tells you you don't belong in a room," he added, "remember the girl from a small apartment who ran a car company and walked away anyway. And the mechanic who swore he'd never come back to the Hamptons and did on his own terms." He handed the mic back, ears burning. Applause washed over him, loud and full. His mother stood, clapping hardest of all. Vivian looked at him like he'd given her something priceless. Maybe he had. Months later, Cole's auto looked different. The sign out front was the same. Letters a little faded. The concrete floor still bore stains from years of oil and seasons. But there were new things, too. Workbenches lined one wall, each with a small nameplate. Marco, Lila, Dante. Underneath, in smaller letters, Streetline Apprentice. Posters about brake safety and torque specs hung where pinup calendars used to be. Ethan moved between stations, checking a trainee's grip on a wrench, correcting another's stance. Lean into it, he told Marco. Use your weight, not your wrist. You want this bolt to respect you. Marco grinned, adjusted, felt the satisfying give as the metal turned. In the corner, Mrs. Cole sat in her folding chair, knitting needles clacking, a thermos of soup at her feet. The scar on her chest peaked above her blouse neckline, pale and thin now. She watched the kids with the soft look of someone whose second chance was being spent well. Vivian stood at the whiteboard at the back, sketching a cross-section of a brake caliper. Her sleeves were rolled up, a smudge of grease on her cheek. Friction, she said, writing the word in big letters, is your friend when it's where it belongs, and your enemy when it isn't. A girl in the front squinted. So, kind of like people, she asked. Good when they're in your corner, bad when they're under your skin. Vivian laughed. Exactly, she said. Engineering and psychology in one lesson. Your money's worth. After class, they walked out into the cool evening together. The sun hung low over the rooftops. The city hummed. Bridge, Ethan asked. Bridge, she said. They took the train to the river, then walked up the wooden planks of the Brooklyn Bridge, weaving between tourists and cyclists. Halfway across, they stopped. The skyline spread before them, a jagged promise. The water below caught strips of light, carrying them out to sea. Vivian leaned on the railing, hair lifting in the breeze. Do you miss it, Ethan asked. What she said. The corner office, the private jet, the illusion, he said. She thought for a long moment. I miss the illusion that I could fix things by myself, she said. That if I just worked harder, I could make everyone happy. She glanced at him. But I don't miss the panic attacks, she added. Or the way every room felt like a test I could fail just by breathing wrong. He nodded. They stood in comfortable silence. Do you ever regret saying yes, he asked quietly. To this, to us. She looked at him. You mean, do I ever wish I'd chosen a safer life with someone my board approved of? She asked. He shrugged. Sometimes I worry, he admitted, that one day you'll wake up and look at your life and think, why did I throw all that away for a guy who smells like brake cleaner? She stepped closer. I didn't throw it away, she said. I traded an image for something real, and if I ever forget why, I just have to look at Marco not getting arrested, or your mom laughing in the corner of the garage, or you in the middle of a classroom saying lean into it like you're teaching torque, but really you're teaching courage. He blinked, eyes stinging. Besides, she added, bumping his shoulder with hers, I like the smell of brake cleaner. It means I'm not spending my days in air-conditioned lies. He laughed. They leaned together on the railing. Below them, the city moved. Above them, the sky stretched wide. Somewhere between glass towers and rusted bolts, between Wall Street and worn-out streets, they had built a small, stubborn world of their own. It smelled like oil and coffee and hope. It sounded like wrenches and laughter and the steady beat of a mended heart. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And for Ethan and Vivian, that was more than enough.